Hey guys, we are trying something completely new, a brand new challenge, at least for me. So let's see what's going on. Hey guys, if you are new, welcome to The Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this isn't your first rodeo, thanks for sticking around. Like it says, we are trying something brand new, it's not a brand new readathon, but it's a new readathon to me, and that is going to be the our Fantasy 2024 kind of annual bingo challenge readathon that's hosted by Reddit. So the Our Fantasy 2024 Bingo Challenge is something I have never done, but I've seen a few videos on it. And this year I was watching Mel from Eleanor Reads, and she's doing it. And I just figured, you know what, let me check it out, see what's going on here. I don't really go onto Reddit all that much. So I don't know how present I'll be on there, but it is a fun challenge that I do want to kind of take on and see how it goes. This is an annual challenge, so it already started April 1st, 2024, and it will go until the end of March 2025. There's no real rules on how quickly you have to read these books. It's just to get through these books. There are prompts for the books that we will get into in a moment. It's also about reading fantasy and kind of getting out of what you might normally read, challenging yourself, new authors, new subjects, things maybe you've shied away from. So it's all in good fun. So I did print out some of the rules because it is new. So if you see me like looking down, it's because I'm looking at rules. But yeah, like I said, so it lasts from April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2025. You can actually turn in your 2024 card. There'll be an official turn in post during March. And you don't really get anything. There's no trophies or whatever. There's like an icon you can get by your name, I guess. I'm not fully sure about it because I'm not really doing it for Reddit. Because like I said, I don't really go on Reddit all that much. But who knows, maybe this will change my mind. Basically, it's called, you get Reading Champion Flair, and that's assigned to anybody who completes the entire bingo card. We're talking bingo blackout here. And that has to be done by the end of the challenge. If you already have the flair, you get basically a Roman numeral after reading champion, indicating the number of times that you've completed this challenge. So every year, I'm assuming it goes 1, 2, 3, whatever. I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to submit my card or not because, you know, it's more doing it for a fun annual challenge for myself. So some of the rules are you can't use the same book more than once on the card. Each book, each square equals its own book. No duplicates, no trying to merge prompts and do that. You may not repeat an author on the card, except you can reuse an author from the short stories prompt and use them if you're reading one of their more, you know, novels or parts of their series that they've written. And now that I'm looking at that, I think we're good. I think I've gotten it. If you by any chance see that I've repeated an author, please let me know in the comments below, because obviously that's not something that I really want to do. And only one square can be a reread. Everything else has to be a fresh and new book, because once again, the aim of this challenge is to read out of your comfort zone, read new books, try new things. You can substitute one square on your bingo card using a square from a previous bingo card. So if there's one square on this bingo card that you're stumped, you can't find a book to match the prompt, or it's not one that you like to read, you are allowed to switch out one prompt for an older prompt from a previous readathon. Makes it a little bit harder. Now, this is where we get to, there's different modes in this challenge. So there is the regular mode where you just kind of do the prompts. There is the hard mode, which is basically the prompt plus a little extra. And of course, that is the mode that we will be trying to go for, because we like a challenge. Even if we don't complete it, we still like the challenge. And there is hero mode. And hero mode seems like it's going to be this big, huge challenge. It's really not. All it means is that you are reviewing every book you read for this challenge, whether it be on Goodreads, on Reddit, on Storygraph, on YouTube. And obviously, you know I'm going to be sharing this with you guys. So there's not a problem for me to do the hero mode at any cost. But we're going to get into, will there be problems doing the hard mode? So now let's get into our 2024 bingo card challenge. I'm going to go ahead and post it up here for you guys. I have it down here and we're going to just go. This is going to be a mix. Obviously, I've been trying to get books off my shelf. So I really tried first and foremost to pick from my shelves of what I currently had. If I didn't do that, then I tried to pick from my ebook T.B.R. that I have because I have a huge ebook stockpile that I've got to get through. So I tried to go from that first. I will let you know if there is a book that I don't own. It's something that I'm looking out for and give you the information there. Because this bingo card literally has 25 books, we are not going to get into details on these books. I'm pretty much going to just show you what I'm reading, why I'm reading it, and I'll go more into details when they appear in future TBRs. So first up, we're going to go row by row. And for our first row across, the first book is a first book in a series. This is to read the first book in a series. And on hard mode, it is to read a series that has more than 3 books. And obviously this is a heavy hitter one because we know the goal has been trying to finish series this year, but we're going to start it. You guys have probably seen this on a previous TBR. I haven't gotten to it yet. So my pick for this is The Coven and the Crow Shadows, which is book 1 Legacy by Birdie Rivers. This is a 4-book series, yet I have talked with the author. I met her at an indie book festival thing, and I was wrapped up in the world that she created just from her telling me about it, that I'm wondering if she's going to expand on this world. So hopefully there will be more books. But either way, it's already got 4, so it's more than 3. This is just kind of your supernatural, paranormal, romance world where people get powers and they serve different gods or deities, almost like in a cultish type of way, I'm thinking. I'm not sure. But it sounded great, so we're going to do this. This is book 1, so starting a new series. So next up is to read a book with an alliterative title. This is to read a book where multiple words in the title begin with the same letter. For example, Legends and Lache, Storm of Shadows, Children of Blood and Bone, Blood and Bone. I can't talk. The hard mode for this is that the title has to have at least 3 or more words in the title starting with the same letter. This one was hard. I had a lot that had 2 words, but I wanted to try to go for hard mode. So I'm doing a little bit of cheating because I know some people don't want to use the words like the. I'm going to do it because I want it for the hard mode. And if that's what I got to do, then that's what I got to do. And for this one, we are taking a little bit of a middle grade fantasy, and we're going to read The Train to Impossible Places by P.G. Bell. I have had this for a while. I got it just because it seemed really intriguing, magical kind of train, fantasy world. And I wanted to read it because I think it's something that maybe my kids will like as they get older. So I wanted to check it out and see if it is worth holding on to for them. But that is going to be my pick for alliterative title because it's got the train to 3 words right there, all starting with T. So done. Next up, we have Under the Surface. And this is to read a book where an important setting is either underground or underwater. The hard mode part of this is to read a book where at least half the book takes place underground or underwater. So I figured I'm going to bring up one that has made repeat appearances and finally, finish out this duology. And that is The Dragon's Promise by Elizabeth Lim. I picked this up. I read maybe about 40 or 50 pages of it, but it was taking place in an undersea dragon kingdom. So I'm going to use that. We'll see if it's more than 50%. I'm thinking it is going to be, but this is going to be my pick for that because it's undersea. So next up is criminals. Read a book where the main character is a criminal. This could be a thief, assassin, or someone who commits fraud, basically. Any type of crime. The hard mode, though, is to read a book where it features a heist. And who doesn't love a good heist? So I am picking a book that has yet to come out, and that is Medici Heist by Caitlin Schneiderhan. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, so please forgive me. This book comes out in August, I believe, but it is kind of a fantasy world set to the time in Italy where the Medicis were one of the more prominent families, and it is completely centered around a heist, hence the title Medici Heist. So hard mode for this one, easier said than done. Super looking forward to it. This was a book that was already on my watch list for 2024. So now I just have a reason for why I have to get it now. You know, I have to get it. It's a prompt. I need it. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing for that one. And for the last square in our first row, that is going to be a book about dreams, and it's to read a book where a character experiences dreams, magical or otherwise. The hard mode is to read a book where the dream is not mystical or unusual. It's just normal dreams or nightmares. So I don't know if this is going to be a paranormal dream or not. It didn't come across this way. So for this prompt, I'm going to be reading Wake by Lisa McMahon. And like I said, I don't know how supernatural, paranormal, or what they're trying to count it as, but this is basically about a girl who has very vivid dreams, or she's able to like go into she gets sucked into people's dreams and she witnesses their dreams. So for those people, they're just regular dreams. She just happens to be able to see them until she comes across someone's dream where it's a little on the darker side, a little bit more on the not so great side. And she finds out that when she's in these dreams, she's actually a participant. She's not just watching. So it might be a little bit of a stretch for this prompt, but we'll see where it goes. If I have to figure out some other thing where they just have a dream, I had to do the Goodreads list for this one, and a lot of the books on there that feature just regular dreams, I actually had already read. So this one was a little bit more trickier for me. So I do have to do a little bit of stretching on this one, but it's not like she's having magical dreams in a fantasy world and whatever. We'll see where it goes. And this might be one that I have to switch out later on, but for now, it's going to stick around in that spot. So now we are going on to row number 2, and that is to read, the first box is to read Entitled Animals. This is to read a book with an animal on the cover. The animal title does not have to appear in the story examples, The Raven Tower, Wolf Song, A Feast of Crows. However, in hard mode, the animal has to be a fantasy or sci-fi creature like unicorns, Leviathan, the Kaiju Preservation Society, things like that, where it is a specific fantasy creature. And for that, I am going to pick The Cursed, I don't think you can see it, but The Cursed Unicorn by Alice Hemming. This one I think is either a middle grade or a YA, and it does center around, I believe, a girl that becomes cursed to take the form of a unicorn. So has unicorn in the title, she becomes a unicorn, it's a fantasy creature, it solves the hard mode prompt. We're getting it done. Next, this one was actually one that I thought I was going to have to switch up, and that is Bards, to read a book where the primary protagonist is a bard, musician, poet, or storyteller. Hard mode is that the character is explicitly called the Bard. So I had to do some searching on this one, and I don't know if what I picked is going to be exactly what I need. However, when I was doing my research on this, it basically said that the main character of this book is telling their own story, and I don't know if you get their name. I don't know if they're called the Bard or the storyteller. I don't know. So this one I might fail on if I'm being honest. We'll see. But I am going to do The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is one that I think is also possibly in the challenge accepted jar, so I might just, be able to get to it ahead of time. But it was one that I've been hearing a lot of really good things about as far as kind of like fantasy canon. So I wanted to get to it and get my take on it. So that will be what we pick. Next up is to read a book that's prologues and epilogues. Read a book that either has a prologue or an epilogue. Hard mode is, of course, to read one that has both. And for this one, I stole Mel's pick from Melanor Reads. I'll give you guys a link to her video and what she's reading down below as well. And that is going to be The House of Bane and Blood by Alexis Menard. I don't have this book yet. However, I think it is free on Kindle Unlimited when I checked. I don't know if that'll be the case when I get to it, but for right now it is. And I know that she said in her video she had a physical copy, and it does in fact have a prologue and epilogue. So I am trusting in her that that is the case, and that is going to be my pick for that. I don't really know much about it, but we're going to give it a try. So next is to read a book that is self-published or indie author. Just like it says, this is a self-published or published through indie publisher. If a formerly self-published novel has been picked up by a publisher, it only counts for this challenge if you read it while it was still only self-published. I'm assuming that's the copy that was the self-published copy, not the publishing house copy. I'm not sure. Hard mode is the self-published author has fewer than 100 ratings on Goodreads, or an indie publisher that has done an AMA with our fantasy. So I'll be honest, I'm not too sure about that last part, but I did go for one that had less than 100 ratings on Goodreads. And for that one, I'm going to do Skin White as Snow by A.A. Warren. This was something that I already had. I had received a free copy through one of the, I think it was maybe a Pharaoh Feb giveaway that they give away like the free books, and you have to go and look them up. And it was one that caught my eye. So I already have an ebook form of this. And when I looked it up, I think it had something like only 70 reviews on Goodreads. So I am going to pick that up and hopefully get to it sooner rather than later, because now that I'm mentioning it, maybe it'll go up to like 100 and then I'm gonna have to replace it. So for right now, that is my pick for that. Next up, we have, I couldn't have planned this better, because for the next square, it is romantasy, which is obviously probably my favorite genre. And that is to read a fantasy book that features romance as the main plot. This must be speculative in nature and does not have to be fantasy. Hard mode is that the main character is LGBTQIA+. And for this, I don't have the book yet, but it has been one that I've been wanting to read, haven't read it, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I am very... I know about Troy, I know about Achilles and Patroclus. I am well versed in their story. However, I want to see how Madeline Miller writes it. I have read her Circe. I read that like a year or two ago, and I loved her writing style, just the way she is able to paint this beautiful picture in your head with just the words that she uses. The stories are very touching, very, very emotionally moving. So I wanted to see what she's going to do with the Song of Achilles. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that one up, because obviously Achilles and Patroclus are in a same-sex relationship. So that will be hard mode pick for that, and that should be a really good one. That moves us down to row number 3. And for the first box in that is to read Dark Academia. This is to read a book that fits dark academia aesthetic. Basically, it includes the setting of a school, university, secret societies, dark secrets. Doesn't have to be fantasy, but does need to be speculative. That just means there has to be like an eerie kind of supernatural feel to it. Hard mode for this is that the school itself is actually a normal school. So for this one, I am going to read The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Daniel Page. This is basically about a sorority at a school where the sorority sisters are actually all witches. So it's kind of a paranormal, supernatural fit into a regular college setting. So we will see how we feel about this. I've heard some good things about it. I found this and the sequel on sale at a discount store. So I was like, of course, I'm going to take a chance on it when it's on sale. So that's what we're going with there. So next up, we have to read a book with multi-POV. You know I am a fan of multi-POV or dual POV. This is to read a book with at least 3 points of view characters. Hard mode is that the book needs to have at least 5 POVs. And I think it's going to be a 5 POV. This is once again one that I might have to switch up a little bit. But we are going to go ahead and do Origins of an Academy Bully. It's either going to be Origins of an Academy Bully or The Awakening as Told by the Boys by Caroline Page. Yes, by These are going to be by Carolyn Peckham and Susan Valenti. These are, I've read like the first 2 books in Zodiac Academy. And then I found out that there were these kind of books as well. There was the Origins of Academy Bully, seems to be like the prequel part to it. And then there is The Awakening Told by the Boys, which is basically the first book told by the boys. I know there's at least 4 boys, and if you're counting the professor, that's 5 right there. So we will see what happens. Hopefully I'll get my 5 POVs in there. Otherwise, we will just have to figure it out, because I know going forward in that series, you do get the 2 main character sisters in there as well. So I know with the 2 sisters and the 4 guys alone, that's going to be more. So I might have to read a few more books to fill this prompt, but we're going to go with those ones, and hopefully one of those will knock that one out. So next up is to read a book that was published in 2024. And this is one that, like, this is the first time this book is coming out. First translations into your language of choice are allowed. So if it was a book written in another language to begin with, and it has just newly been translated into English, that will count. Hard Mode. This is also the author's first published novel, aka it is their debut novel. And for this book, I don't have this book yet. It is out. We'll see if I can find it. And that is The Longest Autumn by Amy Avery. This is a 2024 book, and it does also happen to be her first novel. So we're going to be taking a stab at that. It has been on my list. I didn't realize it was already out. So time to do some shopping, I think. So next up is to read a character with a disability. This is to read a book where an important character has a physical or mental disability, and Hard Mode is that it has to be the main character. And this was actually a lot easier than I thought, because I need to read this anyway, and that is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I don't know what it is called that the main character has, but I know she has some sort of ailment or disease that affects her bones, her joints, and her nerves, which make it very difficult for her to do a lot of physical activities. So set to a world where she has to ride dragons and battle stuff. But she was succeeding in Fourth Wing, and I can't wait to see where the story goes. So easy pick for me. We're going with Iron Flame. So our last square in the 3rd row was one that I really needed to reach out, and we are definitely trying something new on this one. So much harder than I thought it was going to be. And that is to read a book that was published in the 90s. Hard Mode for this is that the author, or one of the authors that has written the book that has been published in the 90s, still has to be current, and they would have needed to have a book published in the last 5 years. So we're talking something from 2019 to current. So this was hard because I wanted to go with like Anne Rice, because Anne Rice was big in the 90s. However, sadly, Anne Rice has passed away. So there's nothing from her that has been recent. I decided to try to go with Stephen King. Even though I am not a horror fan, I know that there are other books that he has written that are not horror related and are really good. However, those ones all seem to come out in the 80s and not the 90s. So that one didn't happen. I tried it with Neil Gaiman. Once again, I ran into the date problem. So I just ended up having to look at fantasy books from the 90s and then looking up to see if the author had finished anything recently. And for that, I came up with something completely new, and that is going to be, I think it's Tigana or Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay. I hope I pronounced that right. This one is a fantasy book I know nothing about. I've never read from this author before. It seemed really interesting. Obviously, I'll show more on that when it shows up in a T.B.R. But this was published in the 90s, and I believe the author has come out with something in both, I think, 2019 as well as 2022. So he is still writing. So still relevant, and that's going to complete that prompt. That one took a while to get. I am not going to lie on that one. That brings us down to our 4th row. And for that, we have Orcs, Trolls, and Goblins. Oh my. To read a book, obviously featuring orcs, trolls, or goblins, Hard Mode, they need to be the main character. Well, lucky for me, my mother-in-law read and brought this over, and that is Bookshops and Bone Dust. And guess who our main character is? This is by Travis Baldra. I think this is the same person who wrote, yes, they wrote Legends and Lattes. I never read Legends and Lattes. Orcs usually are not my go-to thing. I've heard wonderful things about Legends and Lattes, so hopefully with Bookshops and Bone Dust, it'll have the same kind of comfy, cozy fantasy feels, featuring an orc, I believe. Yep, battle-hungry orc as the main character. Next up is to read a space opera. Something I am not a huge fan of is anything really sci-fi, so this is going to be interesting. To read a sci-fi that features a large cast of characters and has a focus on social dynamics, but may be political or personal in nature, set primarily in space or spaceships. Hard mode is to read a book, a space opera that was written by a marginalized gender, such as women, trans, non-binary community. And so for this one, I went and did a little shopping around, and I am going to do Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston, or Poston, however you pronounce it. I do apologize. This is kind of a space opera that sounded really interesting, really adventure. It gave me Titan AE vibes, which I am here for because that was pretty good. And then I realized that I had read one of her books before, although it was not sci-fi or space opera, and that was The Dead Romantics, and I loved that. I thought that gave me all like the Hallmarky feels. So we're gonna see what her take is on a space opera and go from there. And she is a woman writer, so that will complete the hard mode for that prompt. Next up, we have to read a book with an author of color. Read a book by any author of color. Hard mode is that it must be the author's debut novel published in the last 5 years. This one I have been wanting to do for a while. I actually met this author at the Indie Book Festival, and she was really, really sweet. And that is going to be A Virtue's Calling by Lexi Cook. This one, she was nice enough to even sign it. I don't know if you can see that, but she did sign it and write a nice little message in here. This is, as far as I know, this does involve maybe dual time lanes, maybe time travel, I'm not sure, as well as elemental magical abilities. She is a young Black author, and I do believe this was her first book, so I am super excited to get to it. I do love the color scheme and the cover of this. It's absolutely beautiful. So super excited to read this because I know she has a few other books that she has done, but this one was first. So then we have to read a book with survival. This was to read a book where the primary goal of the characters in the story focus on their survival, such as an apocalypse, war, high school, something like that. I love that high school is being compared to the apocalypse. That is kind of funny. However, on hard mode, this survival cannot be in a world where there are super viruses or pandemics. So all your zombie viruses and things like that. So that does not include alien invasion. So we are going with The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I'm covering up, there's a discount sticker on here that I cannot peel off because this is a book from my mother-in-law and I'm not going to do that to her precious babies. So I never saw the movie for this, and I've never read the book. Obviously, it was a huge series at the time of its release. So I'm curious to see how this is going to go. I do have all 3 books in the trilogy. I just have yet to get to them. So yeah, alien invasion survival, it counts. Next up is the last book in the 4th row, and that is to judge a book by its cover. This is to just choose a book because you like the cover. Hard mode is to pick a book based solely on the information available on the cover. You cannot read the blurb. I have no idea what I'm going to pick because obviously everything I currently own, I know what it's about. So this is going to be one of those ones where I'm just going to happen to go in a store, be like, ooh, that looks interesting, and then judge it based literally on the cover. So hopefully there will be something with some good blurbs and shout outs, maybe some recs from authors that I love. So we will see what we pick for there, and it is going to be super hard to not read the blurb on the back. I'm not going to lie, because I always do that. But yeah, that is a TBR unto itself. We do not know until we get that one. Next up is going to be our 5th row. This is the final row. We are here. The first book in this is to read a book set in a small town. Hard mode for this is the small town can be real or fictional, but the broader world needs to be the real world and not like a fantasy world. So you can have a made up town, but it needs to exist in like real world USA or real world Europe or something like that. So for that, I'm thinking this is a small town. I am picking up the first book in the Cousins of Dwyer trilogy, Dark Witch by Nora Roberts. Obviously, if you've been following along, you know I've been reading some Nora Roberts books and I've been liking and kind of not liking, so we're still filling it out. But I did do a purchase where I ended up getting all the books in this series, so they are going to be read. And this one is basically, she goes to the County Mayo in Ireland, and she's going to be going to a small village or whatever of her ancestry. So I'm assuming there's going to be a small village. It obviously exists in Ireland, which is a real place. So hard mode achieved. Next up is to read a book of short stories. This one has to have at least 5 short stories or novelettes. Hard mode is to read the entire anthology or collection, and lucky for me, I did find one, and I've been holding on to it because I knew eventually with all my readathons that I would come across something where I needed to read a collection or an anthology. And so for this, I'm reading My Big Fat Supernatural Wedding. This has a bunch of authors, very famous authors, Jim Butcher, Charlene Harris, Sherilyn Kenyon, all writing short stories having to do around supernatural weddings. So this just sounds like it's going to be a laugh and a little bit of fun, maybe a little bit of steam. We shall see, but it's going to be a fun ride. So that is going to be the pick for that one. Next up is to read a book with eldritch creatures. I honestly had never heard that term before, so I needed to do some digging and look it up, and there was a whole bunch of information on there. I kind of went into overload. Basically, it's a book featuring a being that is uncanny, unearthly, and weird. This can be a god, a monster, another plane, or from another plane or realm, or usually beyond mortal understanding. The hard mode is that the book is not related to the Cthulhu mythos of Lovecraft. Fine, I'm not the biggest of Lovecraft fans. I'm like, some of his stuff disturbs me and scares me. So that is absolutely fine for me. And that, I'm going to go ahead and try reading Godkiller by Hannah Conner. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm choosing this one because it does have gods, it does have different monsters, and it basically talks about the main character being bonded to a tiny god. So I don't know if that's like a sort of parasitic relationship. Was there a ceremony involved? But it seems to have a lot of different things to choose from, whether it be a god, a monster, or some sort of otherworldly creature existing in this world. So I'm hoping this will fill that prompt. I've had it because the cover was stunning. I've heard good things about it. So we're going to delve into that one. Next up is to read a book with reference materials. This is a book that has materials such as a map, footnotes, glossary, translation guide, dramatis personae, which I've never heard of before. So if you know what that is, please let me know in the comments below. The hard mode for this is that the book needs to have at least 2 types of additional materials. And for that one, we've tried it before, we're picking it up, and that is Falling Kingdoms. This is also a multi-POV with a few different characters. But for this one, it does have a cast of characters for you to understand who they are and their relations to one another. And this goes on for a few pages. And it also has a map. So that is 2 forms of reference materials for the book. We're going to go ahead and read it because I know that also is a longer series and I've been wanting to get into it because it sounded really good. It almost sounded like a YA Game of Thrones a little bit to me. So we shall see. And last but not least is this is one that I switched. The original prompt was to read a book club or read along book. The hard mode for that was that it needed to be the current selection of the book club or the read along. I am not a fan of trying to choose read along or book club picks, usually because I might not like the book for that month. And I felt that that one was one that I just really didn't want to be in. So I ended up switching that out for a block from the 2023 bingo card, and that is to use or read a book where the author has used their initials instead of their full name. And for that, I have chosen The High Mountain Court, which is book 1 of the 5 Crowns of Oakrith, and this is by A.K. Mulford. So we have initials here, solves the prompt, and with this book, the 2024 bingo card is as complete as it's going to be, because obviously the cover by, we have no idea what we're going to do for that one. But yeah, these books, obviously it's a stack. I'm not going to pick them up because I think it comes up to my knee, and that's just like the actual books I own. That's not the ebooks, because then we're probably talking like coming up to like my shoulder. I'm short. So yeah, so we're not going to do that. But lots of books, lots of different varieties, choices. We have some romance, we have some sci-fi, we have some orcs, we have dreams and craziness going on. So it's going to be a fun year going forward. I'm not really too concerned because I feel like a lot of these are so generalized that they're going to come up in other readathons. So I will probably like just combine it, that it will fulfill the bingo prompt as well as fulfilling other prompts. So with that being said, I apologize. This video is super long, so I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here and maybe go and do a little book shopping and see if I can find that cover by book. If you guys feel like doing this, I will go ahead and leave a link to it down below so you can get all the information you need to join me in this crazy endeavor. If you've read any of the books, let me know how they were for you. If any stand out looking really good, let me know as well. And just look forward to hearing you guys. I hope you guys are staying well out there, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Bye.